Thank you very much, Ruta, and everybody that make this event possible, and for the invitation, of course. It's great to see some familiar faces around. They say that the maximum attention that a human being can have is 45 minutes. So I have a problem here. But I will try to make this as interesting as possible. So it's really exciting for me to be here for many reasons. The first is coming again to Lithuania and to Kaunas because we were lucky to win the Science Island competition just 3 years ago, and hopefully construction will start very soon. And then the second main reason is because it's always great to talk about architecture, and this is what I will try to do today. So I would like to start with this image, and this image is really linked with the end of the talk of Oleg Gustafsson when he was talking about that we are living in a change of paradigm, and now there are very urgent things that we have to be aware of, beyond buildings, beyond everything, which is the environment, because climate change is on top of everything. So this is where we work. We work in 2 continents, in 3 countries now, and with 3 different landscapes. And landscape is a really, really important thing for us, to understand the landscape, to understand the environment. We are now collaborating with United Nations, with UN Habitat in some projects dealing with sea level rise and global warming. But today we have to talk about landmarks. So in SMAR, most of us, we are architects, although we prefer to think ourselves as designers, and as such, we deal with the physical world, with physical objects, with materials. And it's interesting because the word design comes from the Latin signum, which means it identifying, mark, sign, which we can understand as creating landmarks. But if we go to the Renaissance, the word design, disegno in Italian, was defined as a scheme or plan in the mind. In other words, an idea. And this is what we are really interested in SMAR, ideas. We don't consider ourselves a traditional office of architecture. We are architects, academics, and researchers. We practice, teach, and research, and we try to intertwine these 3 activities. Our goal has never been to build non-stop any kind of building, whatever it takes, but quite the opposite, be selective and try to work in projects that really improve human interaction. We, as I said before, we operate from 2 different continents, which allows us to see things from the outside, which is really interesting, because being born in Spain, studying in the School of Madrid, then I moved to London and New York to continue my education, and then going and coming back to your own country makes you see things differently, which I think is really, really important as an architect. So we work more as a think tank than a traditional practice, and our purpose is to understand the environment, in order to understand the contemporary world and where architects have to operate. So when new entrants arrive to the office, we put them on top of us because we want them to feel that ideas can come from anyone, no matter the experience that you have. And this is what we really are focused about, ideas. In relation to the topic of the conference, landmarks and cities, I feel like we are now experiencing a change of paradigm where we are moving from a space of aesthetics to a space of ideas. If we look backwards in history, the main institutions as church or main companies materialize the power through aesthetics. The next landmark was always related to the most extravagant form or the tallest tower. But now, the most successful companies in the world, they don't need to invest in physical buildings. So the question comes where in an era where most institutions are migrating the public interfaces into cheap digital space instead of investing in physical buildings, what are the new architectural icons? And even when these companies invest a lot of money into the physical world, it seems that they don't want to be physical and they work with transparency. But they are very successful in activating the city around in the same way that the old landmarks used to activate the space around with buildings, with physical forms. But these companies, they do it almost without architecture, without buildings. So landmarks based on extravagant forms were very successful in the 20th century, where they were so unique that they generated attention and therefore they generated activity around. But now, as you can see that in all these landmarks. But now, and I took this photograph last week, a few days ago when I was flying from Australia in Doha. Now, there are so many extravagant forms that when you put them together, you start to question if they really work. So something similar happened when 5 years ago, we entered the Guggenheim Competition. When we entered the competition, we didn't know this was going to happen. 1,750 entries, which I think for the day makes the biggest competition in the history of architecture. And it was really interesting when they released this information. It was really interesting to see all the proposals. You can find any typology, any project was there. You have organic projects, minimal projects, parametric, boxes, schemes, whatever. Everything was there. It was like this, and we were wondering, well, is the point of a competition to have another Guggenheim Bilbao? And we said no, because if they wanted another Guggenheim Bilbao, we'd probably call Frank Gehry again. So we said Guggenheim Bilbao is not what they want, or in other words, maybe it's not what Helsinki needs. So instead of and actually it's a feeling, because seeing this image, we felt more like this when we entered the competition. But what we really did in this competition was, instead of proposing a building, a museum for the new Guggenheim Foundation, we present a series of panels saying that they didn't need another museum. They didn't need another Guggenheim, and explaining reasons why the next Guggenheim in Helsinki shouldn't be another Guggenheim. And we were analyzing that the most important museums in the world and the most successful spaces of those museums were not the art galleries, but the free ticket spaces where people could interact. The problem was that when we were shortlisted in this competition, they wrote a letter to all the finalists, and they said, now we want a building. So we had a problem. And then we started to think about what kind of building we could propose. So we started to look to research about museums, and then we found that in most of the cases, when you get into an exhibition in a museum, you don't interact with people, you interact with signals, almost like in an airport. So museums, galleries have become a kind of known places where no human interaction is happening. So then we were analyzing the Helsinki case, and then comes actually from one of the talks of one of so we went in the second stage to Helsinki for a week, and then we had a briefing from different government institutions, and also some gallery and art museum people. And then this is actually an image from one of the participants that was showing about these empty lobbies and empty galleries, because museums most of the time they're empty. But then we saw that there was a lot of vibrant spaces in the city, in Helsinki, that were very active. So we start to think about those things. So this is the reality today. In a world with increasing interactions with machines, a world where architects are less and less involved in the construction of the world, we think that landmarks and cultural buildings can have a role to play to improve human interaction. So in America, the top schools are now the ones that promote human interaction, because it's something that is a luxury now. So in Helsinki, we started to look, and this is very close to the site of the competition, we started to look at these places where human interaction was happening and how to bring that to the project. This is the site, and then the market is very close. It was a good reference. So, but also we started to look outside of the brief, and outside what was happening around. It was a very long process. The second stage, it took like almost 7 months. So it was a lot of inputs and a lot of information coming, and it was a strong opposition to the project, coming mainly from the artists. So the artists felt that they were kind of threatened by this American brand coming to Finland and Helsinki. So we thought, what if we bring the artists to the project? What if we involve the local artist? And then we start to think about this kind of events when artists took over the Guggenheim in New York to do a demonstration. So some people in the office said, I mean, it's a bit risky if we, bring these artists are activists. What will happen if you bring activists to a building? They may burn it or destroy it. And then I said, look, this is 1968 in Paris, and this is 1968 in Helsinki. They're finished, no problem. So we tried to what we did was try to work with two different entities. One entity was a free ticket space, was a production space where we could bring local artists, so anybody can come and produce art. And I felt that was really exciting, because then you can have an unknown local artist doing something in front of a $2 million sculpture of Jeff Koons, for example. So you have the super famous and expensive artist on the top floor, and then the local and unknown artist producing things. So ground floor was free ticket, interaction, production. And then the top floor, this is the ground floor, some of the galleries. It's a quite large project. And then we were even allowing graffiti artists and we create walls for that, for the local artists in the city, in the courtyards and in some interior spaces. And then the galleries, the program of the museum was on top. But actually, and then we were working with this kind of transition between summer, the 4 seasons, summer and winter, and trying to create this EFD textile envelope of the building to wrap this around. And these two entities, the free ticket production space and the gallery space, were intertwined in a single building, where we had this kind of systems that allows to deploy some systems and all the elements for production, for artistic production in the museum. This is another kind of project that we do, which is international fairs and expos. And it's interesting. I brought this here because it's interesting because they concentrate a lot of companies in a week, and there are a lot of them. And then every company wants to stand up. Every company wants to have a landmark. So we have done a lot of these ephemeral pavilions. I want to show you only two very quickly. And so the question is how you stand up in a place that is full of landmarks and color and different materials and signals. So what we did in this pavilion was thinking a bit of also environmentally and trying not to add more artificial materials into the fair, but use what was really there. So we realized that in all these fairs and expo venues, they covered the whole floor, thousands of square meters with a carpet. And inside the carpet, you have cardboard rolls. So what if we use these cardboard rolls to do a pavilion? So instead of a lot of materials, a single material, and then a material that can be discarded and used again. So zero footprint, and compiling with all the exhibition spaces and meeting spaces that the pavilion needed. And we did the same. We were commissioned another pavilion afterwards, and we did the same strategy. We used the same strategy because they use a lot of plastic to cover the carpet in order not to, while they're building the pavilion, so that they don't get damage. So we thought, let's use this plastic. So we use recycled plastic to do the pavilion. So a single material. So it's a way to stand up with a landmark in a place that is full of color and signals and materials with a single material and using this recycle element. Well, this is a project that we are currently involved with. This is where we are based in Australia, in Perth, in Western Australia. And this is, skip these three images so you can understand here better. So it's a CBD of the city. Australia cities are very like sprawled cities, so like American cities in a way, but with less population. This is a 2 million people city, has a CBD and then some low-rise buildings. So this is the CBD, and this is a kind of a bars and kind of urban area full of restaurants and bars where people hang around at night. And then this is railway. So this is a railway station, and this is railway tracks. This is a landmark. We haven't designed this, but we are involved now. We're developing a project here. So this is so this is the train station here. This is kind of a change of topography, and these are this is a new development in all this area. The development is going on, and it's quite restricted. So this is how the development is going. They're building. They're basically the government is creating a grid in here and putting a lot of buildings. Unfortunately, because we thought that this space was more. The main problem here is how to connect the CBD with the south part of the city, and then so this area with this area, and then the railway was kind of disturbing that. And then they're creating this kind of office buildings all over the place with narrow streets to connect. So we didn't have much room here, but you will see more or less the scale. So this is how the development is going. And this is which is right here, where we're working now. So this is a square that it's been designed by a group of architects. It's already built, this. And this is the site where we are working now. So the question is that the building codes are very strict, the master plan is very strict, so they basically push you to do a podium and towers on top. And most of the podiums and towers are as a kind of a closed podium and towers on top. So we wanted to break that, and we wanted to do the podium open and connected to the square. So we started to what kind of architectural system we can implement to do that. So this is how the connections that we try to achieve, and this is the 4 towers. The project is quite large, involves a science museum, involves a university, involves commercial and retail spaces, hotels, office buildings, and a bit of residential. So it's quite a large project. And this is what we try to do, connect with the topographical connection, the podium with the square, and then being able to activate some elements on top. So also thinking about day and night, how the CBD is more, how to connect in the retail spaces and restaurants, how to activate the space to connect it with the CBD and to connect with Northridge, which is this area here, also with nightlife. So this is what we propose. We propose a kind of a facade that was a kind of interactive space where you can, with a series of staircase, and we placed the university and some debate space here, so they were visible. So the activity was seen from the outside, but also from the street you can climb and get to the rooftop, which have a lot of public activities as well. So the idea was to have a kind of a connection with the elevated square here, then having this facade, and then having another plaza on top of in the base of the towers. This is another view where you can see the early images of the project. So this is a more recent image. So this kind of auditorium from the university, a series of terraces, and then here the square and the elevated plaza. Another image here. A lot of green in the facade, and this is the final image of. And also in the towers, we are creating this kind of sky lobbies, so a kind of elevated plazas with public program. So we're trying to convince the tenants and the owners of the people that's going to occupy these office buildings to have this kind of viewpoints, restaurants, and kind of galleries on top of each of the towers. Okay, so this is another project. This is an interesting one because it's a heritage project in Australia. In Australia, they don't tend to keep a lot of heritage as we do in Europe. It's really amazing. When we arrived there, was a wonderful 1920s cinema in front of our apartment. And one day we came back from holidays and it was demolished. So those things happen in the new world. But fortunately, this will stay. So this is a very interesting location because this is the river. It's a quite large river. It's a sea river. There's like 10 buildings. Heritage was an old men's hospital from the war. This is a very expensive area full of mansions and luxury houses. So what happened here is that neither these people or people that come with public transport or driving from the city could access these wonderful views of the river because these are, again, residential. So it's kind of the only spot in this area where you're able to have access to the river because the rest is private residential, but then it was blocked by this hospital. So the commission was not only trying to restore the buildings, but also try to come up with a new program, what to do in there. So this is how the 1920s image of the hospital, quite old men from the war. And then this is how it looked when we arrived. So it has these kind of pavilions from the hospital, and they are heritage protected, so we have to keep them. So what we proposed was basically creating a public plaza, because the site has a kind of topography. So take advantage of the topography. So some buildings are higher than others. So create this kind of topography where it's a public access, so people can enjoy, can arrive. You can drive a bike. You can skate. You can get in there and then enjoy the views of the river, and then keep just clean the buildings, and then we propose a program to have start-up companies and some public art craft, indigenous people, which is a very important element in Australian culture. So it was a program to bring artists and start-up companies to the place. So the buildings were activated, and then the plaza was open the space for everybody. This is another project we were involved in Peru. This really was an interesting place because this is a museum, and then it was a competition. They wanted to do the extension of the museum, the Art Museum of Lima. So the first question was they wanted the building to be around here, and they wanted to demolish this old amphitheater, but then this is an old park, it's an expo, so it has a lot of pavilions, like this one. So it's a 1920s expo, and then it was completely fenced off from the surroundings. So you can see this is the surroundings of Lima, which is a city, with a lot of traffic, with a lot of pollution, and lack of public spaces. So what we propose is to create kind of a podium from the old building, some kind of an underground, but only one level space for the museum that was actually connected to the building. So on the one hand, you allow people to enjoy public events and also create a plaza. On the other, and just folding the park behind. On the other hand, when you're inside enjoying the art, you always have a connection with the exterior and with the heritage building. And also these kind of courtyards are great for having venues, etc. But also we propose to, while the construction was happening, to have use the old pavilions in the park to have pop-up art installations. This is another interesting case of landmark ephemeral architecture. This is a central plaza in Madrid. This is the Archaeological Museum. And then was an exhibition to commemorate housing. This is a project that we did in collaboration with other architects some years ago. And the location was here, but this plaza is one of the less successful plazas in Madrid. Madrid is a quite active, vibrant city. So it's this culture of cafes and open spaces where people enjoy, and people enjoy being outdoors. The climate allows that. But this is one of these rare examples where it's not a successful project. I don't know if it's because of the topography, because of the weird access. So it's parking entry here, parking entry, kind of blocking the access where nobody gets into the plaza. The people go around, or maybe best case scenario, they cross like that. So we wanted to activate the plaza with the exhibition, and basically what we did is we created a platform. In the whole plaza, a platform, we printed a map of the city, and we placed all these different elements, all these different podiums, which each of them was representing a project from one architect, to create this kind of feeling that people will know where the places were located. So each of these elements had the photographs of the project and is located exactly in the map, in the right location in the city. But it also creates like an urban experience. And good with time. So finally, I'm going to talk about two projects, like the previous speaker. So, which is this is one of the last competitions we did, which is the National Vilnius Concert Hall. You've seen that before, And then finally we'll talk about the Science Island Museum. So when we did this competition, we were thinking, okay, it was first about the site, always. What is this site? We felt that our feeling was that even if this site is in the center of Vilnius, the location is a bit remote. This is a cemetery here, and then the access is from around here, so it's on top of a hill. This building is full of graffitis, so we felt, okay, so it's an amazing location because it's a spotlight, and the height is the virtue of the site, but then at the same time, it's a tricky place to get when it's cold and in winter, and then, you know, you have to go and climb the park, decide to go. It's not like it's a concert hall in the middle of the city where it's accessible and it's surrounded by restaurants or spaces. It's a place that you have to go. So just before we entered the competition, we were coming from China, and then this is the opera of Guangzhou, and we were quite struck by this building because it had never had an opera. It has projections of operas, European operas, so it's empty. It's one of these ghost buildings in China, and I think this is an interesting thing talking about landmarks, because we all know the successful buildings, but unfortunately there are a lot of them that they are not. We have plenty of them in Spain, and there are plenty of them in China. So buildings with these, you know, as Annie was saying before, when Spain was rich, and every mayor in the little city wanted an opera, and then some of these places have no program, no operas to show. So it's cultural buildings are very dependent. Museums and operas and concert halls are very dependent on curators and exhibition programs. So we were quite shocked about this image of these, you know, super expensive buildings by a very famous architect, and then no program. So we thought, what can we do to actually future-proof the building? And then try to work in this location and take advantage of it. So what we really thought is what the biggest advantage of this location was the height. It's one of the highest points in Vilnius, a point where you can see the whole city. So let's take advantage of that. So we were researching about concert halls in different cities, and we found this information which is really relevant. I don't know if it's really blurry and you can read it, but basically what is said is that in London, for example, a year, the opera is visited by 300,000 people, where the London Eye, which is a viewpoint, has almost 4 million people a year. Same thing happens in Berlin with the Reichstag viewpoint, 2.4 million people a year, and 800,000 in the Philharmonic, which is a fantastic building. And so we thought, and then there's a lot of other samples. So we said, what if we can merge these two things, taking advantage of the height of the place? If we can merge the concert hall and a viewpoint, but not and you can say, okay, but you know, all the concert halls can have viewpoints, and we said no, because we wanted a viewpoint that is totally independent from the concert hall. That is really, because if you see the queues of the people going to the London Eye, you will understand. So if it's really people want to have the views, so we really wanted to create a staircase in the middle of these two auditoriums that arrive to a place which you can have 360 degrees views and have this kind of image. But it's also indoors, so we know it's very cold, so it has a restaurant, 360 degrees restaurant inside. So this is the idea that we, so you create a podium, you have a building, and then you access this giant staircase and you enter in this kind of space, which is a restaurant, cafe, everything 360 degrees view of the city, where you can start to contemplate the city while you're accessing. So, 2 for 1 in this case. We obviously came forth and it's going to have a fantastic opera. Now this one, image from the outside. So let's go to the Science Island. Science Island Museum is the project that we've been working the last 2 years. It's a very special project for us. The location, as you all know, is here. We are in the island right now. And then this is the arena where we are now. And then one of the incredible things about this project was that you could actually place the building anywhere. So it was really interesting to see where other contenders placed the buildings all over the island. So we thought, the first decision was where to place the museum. So we started to try to understand the landscape, to try to understand also the landscapes of Lithuania, the relation between a natural and artificial, the relation with the water, the relation with the light and the reflections. And then we came with these drawings in the competition panels where we were thinking, if you have this building already here, which is the arena, this is the island. You don't see the island it's gray in the original image, but the island is here. So we were thinking, if the island has already a big building, which is the arena, and why another building in the island? And then we thought, what is the island for Kaunas? And you will know that better for me, than me. But we thought from the distance, and we started to see all these images of festivals in the island, and then people walking and enjoying. And we thought, and we started to also read about the new developments that are happening in the south bank of the island as well. And then we thought, the island is a real park of the old city of Kaunas. So let's do something that doesn't harm the park very much. And we did these diagrams, and we said, if you place a building, you block views, then you kind of expose more, it will need more energy to hit it, and so on. So we started to think, what can we do to actually keep and preserve the park? And then this image is really important because it's a kind of slope and different of topography, about 3 meters in here. So we thought, what if we place the building around here? And then this is what we did. This is a slope, and then we place the building in here. So it's a long building. It's 300 meters long, and it's placed in this kind of change of topography, but also allows people to be on top, and then go and through all access from here, go up, go from here, go down, etc., etc. So these early drawings of the building, and then early images of the concept. So another condition, we were thinking also about the summer and winter conditions of the island, and then we were, because you felt in the brief that obviously the client wanted a landmark. So the question was quite difficult, because how to create a landmark without designing a landmark, designing a building that is visible from everywhere. So what we did was kind of the strategy of the submarine, which is kind of you're hiding, but then something comes up, and then that shows you where the submarine is. And then we came up with this strategy. So a long building with a series of holes, skylights, to allow people to access and create this kind of outdoor amphitheaters. And also one of them was these two are going down, and one of them was going up, and this one was going to become the landmark. So that is a 30-meter diameter disc that we are calculating. We've been calculating with the engineers with some discussions, but also it can be light up and be visible from the city. So you have a landmark without designing a building almost. And then this is the image that you have when you get to the island. So this long 300-meter piece, and then this kind of reflective disc that allows you to identify where the building is. So when we were working in this the orientation of this element, and then how you can get light in, but also how you can be reflected yourself. So this is, I think, really interesting, because most of the times, and this is the main courtyard, most of the times science museums are dark caves where you lose control of the time and space. And we wanted, and you need these dark spaces to have certain exhibitions, but we wanted to combine both. So we wanted to have dark rooms, interior galleries with special installations, but also have the possibility to interact with nature. We wanted the museum to be about science, but environmental science. And then, so the disc cladding is reflected aluminum sandblast, which allows you to interact with the exteriors, to have awareness of time. So we wanted the visitor to become a protagonist. When you're inside, you will see the clouds passing, the sun, and depending on your position, you will also be able to see the flow of water on the river. But when you're outside, you will be able to see the flow of people inside the museum. When you're sitting in these stairs, you will be able to see yourself reflected. And knowing the size of the disc, you'll know the size of your body. And this is when it gets interesting, because it's not only about the sun, the clouds and the landscape, it's about us. But the most amazing thing about the disc is in gravity. So it's a challenge to hold this 30-meter disc with no columns. This is something that I invite you to see when it's finished. So the disc, this is the north part of the project, facing where the planetarium is and facing the city. This is where, one of the images of the exterior. So this is the 3-meter long facade. This with the main lobby, and here planetarium, KAFe, the restaurant and experimentarium, and then KAFe here, able to have outdoor experience. And this is another view coming from the south, where you see the reflective, how you be reflected in the disc, and how it's integrated in the landscape. We were been working a lot with the reflections, the kind of glass we want, the kind of invisibility to merge the building with the landscape. Some images, kind of this kind of land art piece that is part of the pathways of the island when one is white. Then I'm not going to show that today, but we are working also in a roof that allows seasonal vegetation to go through little holes, so the project will change during the seasons. This is an image, a long image of a project. So these little dots are people. The scale is quite large. So here, office, all these galleries. The main lobby, all these galleries are around here, the office spaces, main galleries here, the main lobby with the disc, and then here's 2 floors, one goes down to the planetarium, and then one goes up to the restaurant, KAFe, to enjoy the south part of the island and the sunset. And this is an image that we like, but because it shows how the project is merged in the island. This has changed, but this is kind of it. Thank you very much.